Hi and welcome back. In the previous video I showed you how to create an animated 4-shot screen. In this video I'd like to show you a couple of variations on that theme and also a different version of 4 shots on the same screen using thirds and like a 2/3 of a screen as well. Anyway, let's get on to the first part. At the end of the previous video we had 4 shots all animating in from different directions. So we'll start there. So if you've got a static shot, like we've got basically 3 static shots here, and you want to make it more interesting, bit of movement, you can add a bit of animation on the scale. So let's go to the first one, which is basically a static still image. So we can go to the beginning of the sequence, click on scale, and that's your first keyframe, and then go to the end of the sequence and click on scale again and set it to maybe 120, and we want to do a ease in like everything else. So now it comes in and it moves. Of course this only focuses on the center of the sequence, so if you want to actually make it focus on something else, so what we can do is put another keyframe at the end here and reposition our photo. So let's do that. We'll go to the end and we'll click on the keyframe and we'll drag that across, and so now it doesn't focus on the center of the image, it will move it across at the same time. So let's go back to the beginning and have a look. So as you can see, it's moving across and not necessarily focusing on the center of the frame. So this format of like 4 shots on the same screen is quite regular, and maybe we could do something different. So let's take a look at that. So let's open up Photoshop and create a new file. So the first one we need is going to be a width of 1440 by a height of 720. So make sure it's in landscape mode. Make sure this is set to RGB color, and then click transparent. So then click create. So now we have a blank canvas at 1440 by 720, which is actually like a 2/3 of a 1920 by 1080 screen, which is great. So press Ctrl A or click select and then click all, and then like we did before, we click edit and stroke, and 3 pixels wide stroke and black, make sure it's inside, and click OK. So now we have a file with a 3 pixel stroke around the outside. So we'll save this and we save it as a PNG, and we'll call this 1440 by 720. Click OK and OK again, and that's the first one. So the second one we're going to do, we'll resize this canvas because it's easier, and we'll make it 1920 by 360, which is basically a full screen width but only a 1/3 of a screen high. Click OK, and then what we'll do is we'll select all, click backspace, and then we'll stroke this one. All the values should still be the same, so click OK, and now we have a 3rd horizontal panel. So we'll save this one, go to PNG, so then we'll call this 3rd horiz. Fine, say OK. Close it off and exit out of Photoshop. So now we'll import those 2 new files we just created, 3rd horizontal and 1440 by 720, and there we go. So we'll put those into the elements folder just to keep it nice and tidy. So now we need to create a new sequence for our 1440 by 720 screen. So right click on that and click new sequence from clip, and we have our 1440 thing. Take our placeholder and place that in the back, and just for convenience we can just stretch that out, and just there you go. Do the same thing for the 3rd horizontal. So right click, new sequence from clip, drag that up 1 layer, get the placeholder, put that in the middle, and then just to make it pretty we'll drag that out so it fills the whole screen. So the next thing we need to do is create a sequence that is 2 shots of a third screen vertical. So that makes it 2/3 high but 1/3 wide, okay? So first thing we need to do is create a sequence using this third. So right click the file name, click new sequence from clip, drag that up, add the placeholder as usual, and there we have a third, right? So because we want it 2/3 high, the best way to do this, the only way I've found really, is to duplicate this and then rename it 2/3 or something similar. We need to change the sequence settings and change this to 720. So click OK. And OK, it doesn't matter. We can delete that. So then we can drag this one in here, and we'll keep existing sequence settings, and we'll drag another one in. So we now need to reposition this one. So it's going to be half of that, so it's going to be 180. And this one will be 180 plus 360, so that'll be 540. So now we have our 2/3 panels. So we can animate this. So what are we going to do? We're going to make it come down from the top, all right, just for something different. We go to 7 frames in, and we click our position to create a keyframe, and then we go back to the beginning, and we need to change the height and drag that out. So that really should be -180. So now when we play that back, there we go, and we'll make that ease in, and then we'll do the same for the second one. So we're on 7 frames, so we'll activate the keyframes and then go back to the beginning, and so this one needs to come from the top, so we can set that again to -180. So now we animate that, and we have our 2 keyframes coming in like that. Now I noticed a bit of a problem straight away, is that the second one overlaps the first one as it comes in, as you can see, right? So what we can do there is maybe swap it around so that the top one comes in and the bottom one comes in behind it. So what we can also do is offset that by about 5 frames or something, and then when that comes in, and then that one comes in behind it. So now animating that, and there it is. We'll set that to ease in while we're at it. So let's have a look at that, and it plays in like that, and there we go. Now what you could do with this, just to make it a little bit different, instead of making this second one come in from right from the top, you can make it come in from behind the second one. So if we look at this, we can see that the final position is 180 pixels. So if we set this to +180, and then we shut that off, we can see that this one here is starting in the same position that this one finishes. So now when we play that back, we can see that it's a lot smoother, and play it a little bit slower, and you can see that as the first layer gets to that point, the second layer starts to come in behind it, and it comes in a lot smoother. So now we need to create a new sequence for our third screen. So if we go new sequence, it doesn't really matter what we're going to do because we're going to change it, but we call this third horizontal. Click OK. So now we need to resize it. So we right click it, click sequence settings, and then change this to 360, the same as we did in Photoshop. So now we have a sequence that is the right size. So we find our third horizontal PNG and we drag that in onto the second layer, and then we drag our placeholder in, and just to make it look pretty, we can drag that out and fill the whole screen. So now we can close all these off for the time being, and we can do the more exciting stuff. So we'll create a new sequence, and it's 1080p, doesn't really matter. So we'll call this something like 4 screen. Click OK. So now we'll open that up. And the first thing we need to do is drag in the 1440 by 720. So that can come in at the top, keep existing settings. So now we can move that up into the top corner. So this of course is 1440 by 720, so half of that is going to be 720. and half of 720 is going to be 360. So there we go, we got our first screen. So now we'll get our 2/3 screen and we'll put that in. So we need to reposition that, and we'll turn off this one so we can see the other one. So we'll set this one to 1600. Don't worry, I already know these numbers, so that's fine. And then we'll change this one to 360. Right, so turn that back on, and now we've got 3 screens. So the final one is this third horizontal, and we'll put that in there. So we can't see where it is at the moment, so we'll hide those two, and we'll go to our third horizontal. So we'll drag that one down, hold your shift key, it should stay in the same position horizontally. So to make this nice and neat, they're going to make this one 900. So now, after we turn these back on again, we have our 4 screens in the same scene. So now we need to animate these other 2 shots. So click on the 1440 by 720, go across to 7 frames, and then activate the keyframes. Set this one to ease in, go back to the start, and then we want to make that move off screen, and it's going to be minus 720, of course. So now when we animate it, there we go, and then we click on the bottom one. So now we need to decide where we want the shot to come in from. So let's make it come in from the bottom, just for something different. So go across 7 frames, activate the keyframes, make this one ease in, and go back to the beginning, and then we'll change the Y position, make it come in from off the screen, so that's going to be 1260. And so when we play this back, there we go. So let's put this together with some actual video. So first thing we need to do, of course, is duplicate these elements. So if we select them all and then click duplicate, so what we can do now is go to the footage, and because I like to keep things nice and tidy, we'll copy the file name and we'll paste that there, and then we'll copy this one and we'll paste that here. But because this one has 2 shots in it, we also need to duplicate this one. So we need to duplicate the thirds. So there's the third, so let's duplicate that twice. So right click, duplicate, and right click again and duplicate again. So we'll take that out of there, just make it neat and tidy, and put that down the bottom. Then we'll take this one and with our third, copy one and change that, and then our final one and change that. So now we have all our elements duplicated. So we'll keep this as duplicate copy, and we'll keep that as full screen copy. So now we need to put our footage in there. So what's this one? 622. Drag that, press your Alt key, drag it over the placeholder. Now, because this is supposed to be a third and we're at still 100 scale, we need to reduce it 33% really. So, or you can change it to whatever you want, just to make whatever. So let's do it as 50% just to give it some space. And we'll do the same thing with the second one. Press your Alt key, drag it over and resize it 33%. There you go. We can close those off. Then, alright, this one here, click that, drag that there. So this is going to be like 2/3 the size. So we can resize that a bit if you really want to. Drag it down a bit, reduce the scale, that'll do. Looks okay. And then the final one is this one. And we'll drag that in and put that into the file. So we need to reposition this to give it some sort of something that looks okay. There you go, that'll do. Nice sunset. So now we have our setup. Let's put the first one in here, and we get that third, and we'll put the second one in here, and we get that third. So now we get the nice animation coming in like that. So in our copy of our 4 screen, we need to drag in the other duplicates that we made. So on the 2/3 copy, we can drag that in like that, and there we go. On this one here, we can drag that in and put that there. And on this one here, we can drag that into the top. So now we have our scene with 4 shots, and if we play that back, we can see how it animates in, which is pretty good. Anyway, that's enough from me. I'll see you in the next video.